Hello and welcome to another video tutorial Monday. This week I wanted to show you a technique that I kind of just stumbled upon this weekend that is the perfect way to make water with Distress ink. And I started off with wanting to make a background for a mermaid, so I thought, well, I want to cut her out, so I'm going to make an ocean for her to be in. So this is how I came about this technique. And the cool thing about it is you layer different colors with the greens to make it look a little bit more, or to have a little bit more depth. So the first thing I'm going to do is take my piece of cardstock. This is Vintage Cream by Paper Tray Ink, my standard size card front, which is 3 3/4 by 5 inches, so that it'll have a 1/4 inch border all the way around the outside. And I'm going to crinkle it up. And it seems kind of scary at first, especially since the cardstock is so thick, to do something like this to it, but trust me, it'll be worth it in the end. So now that we have our piece of paper crinkled up, you see I didn't go too crazy with it here, just kind of crinkle it up. I didn't really put it in a ball or anything, just making sure that there are crinkles pretty much all over the card. And this will also add that nice water reflective ripple look. And I'm going to start out with my Tumble Glass Distress ink, and I'm going to go over the entire front of the card with a pretty light touch, just making sure to get all of the cardstock covered, really work it down into the crevices, and you can definitely see those fold lines starting to show. Now that I have my entire base covered with Tumble Glass Distress ink, I have it pretty evenly coated. The places where you see it get darker is where there were a lot of folds. And here, I'll bring it up here. You can see that it's fairly even coated, except for those really high points. And next you have to decide what's going to be your top and bottom. I want this to be my top because it's probably the most even. Down here it's a little bit blotchy, so I'm going to have that be the bottom because it'll look really cool in the end. And the next thing I'm going to do is add my shabby shutters. Now, at first, I have to warn you, it's not going to look like water, but you kind of just have to go with it. So I'm adding shabby shutters in pretty much the same fashion that I added the tumble glass, making sure that it's a thin coat, but a very even coat. And I'm going almost all the way up to the top. Just about a ½ inch at the top won't be covered by this. And I want to make sure that it kind of fades out to the top. So I'm kind of starting out from the bottom and working my way up and lifting off the paper as I go. Okay, so you can see it does not look like water yet, but that's okay. Next, that's our base for our little teal scheme that we have going on here. We can add on our broken china. And once again, we're going to do the exact same thing we just did with the green, only we're going to go up to about a ½ inch of where the green stops. So you see, I'm just kind of starting at the bottom and then lifting up as I go up. Now I'm just taking, without inking it again, I'm working up from the bottom and moving towards the top. And this is just a way to kind of smooth everything out. Remember, you can always go back and add more ink, but you can't really take it off. So have a light hand at first, and if it doesn't look quite right, just keep adding to it, and eventually you'll get to where you want it to be. Next, I'm going to add some Faded Jeans Distress ink, and I'm going to go about halfway up here. This is adding the deeper water, because it definitely gets deeper blue as you go down because there's less light. So I'm going to go about halfway up, once again kind of making that transition smooth by letting my pressure off as I go up. And you can make it really dark on the bottom because we're going to be making it even darker with the Chipped Sapphire Distress ink. So now we can add in that Chipped Sapphire and just brush it along the bottom. This ink pad's really juicy too, so I'm barely even rubbing mine across it. And then lastly, as far as more colors go, I'm going to add some pine needles to the bottom, and this will add in a little bit more green without overpowering anything because you're just using it on the dark colors. Okay, and now we just kind of assess what it's looking like and what we want to do to it. So I see that I have a really cool effect going down here on the bottom, but it gets a little bit too green for my liking once I get up towards the top. So I'm going to add more tumbled glass distress ink right over the broken china, and this will help blend it in a little bit more without it making it too much darker. And then I'm going to make this transition right here, about halfway up the cardstock, a little bit easier with a little bit more broken china. Alright, and there's our water. So you can see it's really cool. There's a perfect gradient, and then the hint of green really gives it that depth that might have been missing if you would have just blended the blues together. And of course, the crinkling doesn't look distressed at all. It just gives it a visual texture that really makes it look like water. So I'm really loving that right now. I might do something to the top here, like punch a border punch on it. Not quite sure yet. I'll get to the rest of my card first and then make that decision as we go along. So for my card, I'm going to be using this Critters in the Sea set by Lawn Fawn. And I've gone ahead and stamped these critters on some vintage cream cardstock, which is the kind I just used for my water itself. And I've actually stamped them in VersaFine stamp ink, and this is new to me. I had a blog reader suggest it to me, and it works with Copics too, and it's a pigment ink. It's really, really dark black, and I'm loving it right now. So I thought I'd show you that today. Okay, so now we can go ahead and start coloring in our critters, and I think I'm going to try to keep them very light colored so they really pop off of this darker background. And I'm going to try to use only a few colors because keeping it down to, 5 to 7 colors is definitely better than using, 12 or 15 because it makes them all look like they relate to one another. So I'm going to use this gray probably multiple times. This is T3, and I'm going to color in the octopus with it. My first layer is going to be kind of messy, but that is okay because I'm cutting these out anyways. So I'm going to take my T4 and go back in where the shadows would be. So underneath where each tentacle ends, and then maybe on this side as well. Let's go around his whole head actually. And then I'm just going to go in with the T3 and blend it all together. Super easy. That's my kind of blending, is using just 2 colors. It makes it super easy, and we want to keep it so that the background really shines, so we're not trying to make them super intricately colored. Next, I'm going to use an orange color. Okay, I think this YR15 will be a good orange, and I'm going to color over our little seahorse here. And then use the YR16, which is 1 color darker, to give this little seahorse some shading. And I'm just going back over that to blend it in. Very little shading, but it does add a little bit of a difference. And then I'm using the YR15 again to do one of the fish. I'll make each one of these a different color, just for fun. And then I'm going to do the entire bottom part there in the darker color and then blend it in. And then I'm going to go ahead and color the turtle. I'm going to do YG17 and YG25. And I think just these colors will be fine. And I'm going to use the YG25 for the fins and the head, and then the little areas between each one of his plates on his shell. And when I'm doing something like this, I always do the lighter color first, because then when I go back over the little pieces of the shell here, you can be a little bit more careful and just blend in that lighter color that's there. So it saves you a lot of time and it looks just perfect anyways. So you can go kind of fast through the lighter color. And I think we definitely need a green fish. So I'm going to go ahead and color in this fish with some green, and then I'm just going to use the YG17 as my shading color. And for the big fish, I think I'm going to do a touch of purple, and this will help me bring in another some elements into my card, so I can bring in some, you know, pearls or something like that that are purple. And it also completes this like triad color scheme that we have going on here, because the green, the orange, and the purple are all make a triangle on the color wheel, since they're all mixtures of two of the primary colors. So the purple, the orange, and the green always look good together. So keep that in mind next time you're making a card. So now that I have my little elements colored here, I'm going to cut them out with my scissors, and I'm just going to use my Cutter Bee scissors. And then when I get those done, I'm just going to go around the edges with my black Memento marker to make sure that the white is covered up inside the paper. And that'll just give it a nice clean edge and a clean finish. So I'll be back in a second with these cut out. Alright, now that I have my little critters colored and cut out, and I actually have them on some dimensional adhesive so I can just go ahead and stick them to my card when I'm ready, I'm going to go ahead and adhere this our background piece onto the card. I've added some foam adhesive to the back, and I'm going to use this purple color that's similar to the one that we used on the fish. Oh, and I changed the color of the octopus because I figured since I had 2 orange animals and 2 green animals, I should have 2 purple animals too. So I just stamped another one of those and colored it purple the same way I colored the fish. So I'm going to get this onto the card here. And then I can go ahead and start looking where I want to adhere my animals. I think I want my sentiment to go down here. So I'm going to kind of place them around up here, and then when I'm ready I can really cement them into place by pressing them down harder. Alright, and don't be afraid to press down really hard onto foam adhesive, because in order to make it stick to this slightly damp distressed paper, you need to kind of press it in there so the adhesive really takes. So I think I want my sentiment to go right about here, and I'm going to do a little strip of vintage cream cardstock across the bottom. And so I'll just bring out my little page protector full of all my little scraps here and see if I have one that fits. That looks pretty good. I think what I'm going to do is trim this down to a size that'll just barely fit this sentiment. So this sentiment, using my grid here, is about 5/8 of an inch tall. So I'll make this just a little bit over 5/8 of an inch tall. Maybe a 3/4 of an inch. Just shy of 3/4 of an inch. Okay, and I just lined it up using my ruler. And you can even use the little dashes as guidelines too to make sure it's absolutely perfectly lined up. And just go over that a couple times with an X-Acto knife. And since this has a metal edge on the side, the X-Acto knife won't hurt the plastic. If you used it on this side, you'd run that danger though, because it might kind of take a chip out of it, so always use the metal edge side when you cut with it. And now I can pick up my sentiment on my block, making sure it's perfectly straight. If it looks a little crooked, feel free to adjust it. And then I'm going to use this VersaFine ink. And although I said I used it on my card for my animals, I'm not quite sure if it's really meant for Copic coloring. I think if you heat set it, it would probably be fine. But it kind of smeared when I did it. So I think I'll stick to my Memento black ink. But this stuff rocks for getting a really black impression. Look, it's pretty pristine. So let's see if we can focus on that. There we go. So I'm definitely going to be using this a lot, just not for Copic coloring. So yeah, that's pretty cool. It's a pretty cool new tool, and it is really good at getting the detail. So I will definitely be using this for a lot of sentiments from now on. And it is dry to the touch right now, even if you might need to kind of heat set it to get it perfectly dry so that you can, you know, rub it back and forth. You might not want to do that right now because it is a pigment ink. So now that I have my sentiment stamped, I can go ahead and see where I want to put it on my card. And I think I want to round these edges with my 1/4 inch corner rounder. And now I can go ahead and stick this on with some foam adhesive. Since everything else is already stuck on with foam adhesive, I'm going to stick with that. And I'm going to use this stuff from Sticky Thumb adhesives, and this stuff is awesome. It's super sticky, and it works like magic, I swear. And the thing that I love about it is that it comes in 6 different sizes in one package, so that's really cool. I'll have the link out to all the supplies in this video on my blog post on my blog at brittaswiderski.com. So if you want to find out where to get any of the things that I'm using, you can look there. I can trim off the excess. And then I'm going to add some gems. Just to finish off this group of 3 that we have going on here, we have the purple taken care of because the cardstock is purple. But I want to add in some more green and some more orange. So what better to do that with than the colors that we actually used to color the green and the orange animals. So I'm going to take my green Copic marker, my Y25, and color around 2 medium-sized gemstones. And then take my orange color, my YR15, and color around a large gemstone. And then just give these a quick second to dry, and then you can use an X-Acto knife to pick them up and place them on your project. Now I think the card is almost done, but for some reason when I look at it, my eye gets drawn up here. And since there's nothing there to look at, I think that it needs a little bit something right there to kind of just bring your eye back down. So I'm going to use some stitching. And I've just set up my little mouse pad here, and I am going to be punching through a foam layer, so this could be interesting, but it's really bothering me that it doesn't have something there, so I'm going to try it anyways. And I'm just going to punch a hole in the corner here, and then do 6 holes this way, and, well, 5 extra holes this way, and 4 extra holes this, or 3 extra holes this way, or 4 total, and that way I'll have 3 stitches going down this way and 5 stitches going this way. And then the trick here when I sew it will be just to keep it kind of loose so that it doesn't pucker the cardstock down or anything like that. But with the crinkling anyways, it's already it's not perfectly straight, and that's fine. So I'm not too worried about it. So I'm just going to start from the back here and work my way down into doing the stitches all the way back around, and I'll be back in a second. Okay, so I'm back with my finished card, and that stitching looks really great. You just have to remember, keep it really loose. You can see there's actually a lot of slack in there, but it looks completely normal from the front and it keeps it from puckering, so that really did work. But yeah, I really like how this turned out, and I just love that whole water effect, and I'm excited to see what else I can do with it. Obviously it would work really well for water, but maybe it would look really good for grass or maybe even fire. That'd be really cool. So I'm definitely going to experiment more with that and see what I can come up with. I hope you really enjoyed watching me make this card. Here's a picture of the finished card. And here's a close-up. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll catch you again next week on another Video Tutorial Monday.